What's going on, everybody? This is James Grandmaster Facts Boyce, and this is another episode of Facts Project. Today, very special guest, Damien Becton of Worlds Away. Just released on Kickstarter for the past 2 weeks. We are at the final hours. Thank you for being here, brother.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me, man.
Absolutely, man. So, and I've told you just previously, like I've had the opportunity to basically embolden my curiosity because I've been following you a while, and of course I've seen that you're a Mad Cave talent winner. So
Yeah,
you basically this has been a desire of yours for a very long time,
absolutely. Hopefully we can talk about that as well, because that's like I said, we were talking just before this, but we were talking about how I'm a teacher and everything. If we get the chance, I'll tell you how I found out about that, because that was crazy.
Okay. We will absolutely get to that. But the biggest thing, this is it now. Is this your first basically creator owned issue that you're putting out in Worlds Away?
This will be my first. Well, technically, this will be my first or second published story ever. So I got another thing coming out just before this one. It's a 6-page story in an anthology. But that will be my first one, and this will be my first like single issue of anything ever. So yes, sir.
Dope. So to get in the Worlds Away, now you basically described it as Radiant Black, Kyle Higgins, great Tokusatsu type Power Rangers type graphic novel / God of War. Why did you describe it as such?
Visually, I would say it's more Radiant Black because of their power sets, because of the main characters, how the main characters looks, their armor that they're wearing. But story-wise, it's definitely more God of War. The reason I wanted to make that comparison is because comic books. I wanted to say, hey, because Radiant Black is really, really popular right now, and visually it really does look like Radiant Black. But story-wise, it definitely is more God of War. If you guys have ever played God of War on the PS4, I know that there's a new one coming out in
I just saw that like a couple of days ago. Yeah,
that I'm really excited about. But story-wise, it's definitely more God of War because of this family element, because of this mother-daughter relationship that'll hopefully that I'll be able to get to make for 4 issues.
Okay, so basically to jump in, the 3 main characters that I was able to see in these first 9 pages in this preview were Serenity, Mackenzie, and if I'm saying that correct, Zaire.
Zaire, yep. I actually named them after. Again, we were talking about me being a teacher. I actually named them after some former students that I had. They're personality-wise, they're nothing like their real counterparts, but those are just some students that actually had an impact on my life. I learned a lot from them, so I decided to kind of dedicate this to them in a way.
That's dope. Do they know about this?
Oh yeah, they do. All 3 of them. Zaire actually, he just got a scholarship to play at App State. He's a senior in high school. The other 2, they're already in college. I've been teaching like 8 years now. I met them in 6th grade. And they've grown up, man. They've matured a lot since their 11-year-old immature days. I'm sure they're still growing, but they're good people. They're good people. I'm proud of them.
Nice, man. That's what's happening. So to get into the crust of this story, from the storyline from which I took it as a reader, of course, it takes place in the distant future. We are talking about Serenity and Zaire, mother and father. Unexpected, of course, fall in love, have a child together by the name of Mackenzie. She then has a terminal illness, and in an act of conflict, seems as though Zaire is now out of the picture or somehow lost in this issue, to where Serenity continues to fight on for her daughter for cure and has to battle through an alien race.
Yep.
Basically, kind of, she's on the run.
Absolutely. So that first little conflict you were talking about, I initially planned on releasing that as a like a prelude that everyone would have, and I'll eventually do it. It is available online on Global Comics, but yeah. So Zaire is out of the pictures. Mackenzie, she ends up having this at the very beginning of the story. It's like the first 4 pages, y'all. She ends up being sick, and they come up with this whole Serenity and Zaire, the mother and the father, they come up with this whole elaborate plan to steal this cure from an alien race. And Zaire, spoiler alert, but it happens in the first 4 pages, but Zaire ends up sacrificing himself in order to save those two, because if he doesn't sacrifice himself, then they, that none of them will make it. So he decided to give his life kind of in order to save them, and you'll see throughout the story that this is going to be I would say, a point of conflict for Mackenzie and Serenity, because Serenity and Mackenzie, they really do not get along at all. And you'll see that in the first issue, you'll see that in the second issue, third and fourth issue, if I'm lucky enough to make it. See that Serenity actually, or Mackenzie actually prefers Zaire, her father, as opposed to Serenity, Mackenzie. Hold on, my cat is right here.
Look, man, if he or she wants to get into the pod, I'm all for this.
My boy stuck in there.
So to basically get back into it, so the way that I basically did a little bit of research on this is that, of course, this is a sci-fi comic, and there's always a great, awesome, combatful mother in sci-fi movies, whether it be Ellen Ripley, Sarah Connor. If we want to talk about the present day, Hippolyta Freeman from Lovecraft Country, like just basically these very, very willful women who will do any and everything for their children. So the focus on a mother's instinct and to protect their children. How much of Serenity do you see in your own mother?
100%, man. I promise you. I was on another show talking about this as well. Actually, I was talking about it with some of my classmates earlier today. But she's very much based on my mother. Shout out to my mom, because I love you. I love you, mother. My mom is like a little tiny Asian Filipino lady. And like throughout my life, all she's ever wanted to do was just make sure that I was okay. I'm 31 years old right now, and my mother will text me out of nowhere every other day, or maybe every 2 days. Did you eat today? Do I need to send you money? I'm like, Ma, I'm 31 years old. It's fine. But absolutely, thank you for bringing that up, because anytime I get a chance to talk about my mom and talk about how much she means to me, I'll be happy to do it. But yes, 100%. She's a very exaggerated version of my mother, because my mother is the nicest person on earth. And Serenity is kind of like the polar opposite in that respect. But the whole, she's willing to do anything to protect her daughter. She's willing to do anything to make sure that she's okay. She's willing to do anything to make sure that she's safe. In that respect, she is 100% my mother.
Got you. All right. So basically, as an educator and more so an English teacher, what are the hopes of teaching your audience with this story?
We go a lot in 6th grade. I teach 6th grade. A lot of the things that I tell them is that, especially in movies and TV shows and books and everything, you'll talk about theme from 6th grade all the way into college, if they choose to go to college. But one of the main themes is, just like we've been talking about, what family members or what your loved ones are willing to do to make sure that you're safe. A lot of times we don't see, especially when we're younger, we don't see why our adults, our guardians, our parents make the decisions that they make. Not say, why I don't know. Why are you doing this? I'm not, why won't you let me go to so-and-so's house? Or why won't you let me do this? Or why won't you let me do that? And a lot of times it's because, you know, they have that parental instinct, whether it's right or whether it's wrong. They have their reasons like, no, I don't think you should do that. Or oh, absolutely not. You're not going, and that's final. A lot of times you'll see that. And I see that a lot with my students. A lot of times I have to play like social worker,
Yeah.
just kind of like say, hey man, what's wrong? And a lot of times they'll confide in me. A lot of times they'll tell me what's going on at home. Sometimes I might have to report it to the office. Sometimes, you know, it's not too bad that I can probably give them some advice then and there. But a lot of times they just don't understand the decisions that their parents make. And most of the time the parents are just trying to protect them, whether it's in a good way, whether it's in a bad way, whether it's in a way that they disagree with.
Mhm.
They just don't see it. And that a lot of that you'll see that in this story as well. Mackenzie just is not, she probably doesn't see her mother's side of the story. And her mother, Serenity, is like, yeah, she can be a little bit unkind at times, and you'll see a lot of that as well.
It's true. It's true. Now, Mackenzie being a 13-year-old, and of
Mhm.
course, 13 being an age of transition. Of course, you being a sixth grade teacher, you deal with probably a lot of 11, 12, 13 year olds at that time
Absolutely.
frame. You're in a transition piece. So they become like they're slightly more so naive,
Hmm.
lightly educated, depending on their life experiences. You have a young lady that's basically personality wise seeming to be a lot above her years to the point
Hmm.
where, she lashes out a little bit too much at her mom, because
Hmm.
most preteens at
Yeah.
that time frame tend to think that they know it all. And I get
Yep.
it too, you know. So I'm actually glad you wrote the story from the perspective of somebody like in that age period,
Hmm.
because I remember being that age. I probably thought I knew everything, and I'm more so did not. Yeah, but basically, like,
Oh, okay. So.
why did you choose, like, because there's that time jump where
Hmm.
where she's in adolescence, and you see her journey out on her own for the very first time.
Hmm.
That's as far as I got within my 9 pages.
Yeah, and you'll see a lot more of that.
Yeah, so I was thinking, I was like, okay, is this girl's just like playing hooky out there, just out there amongst the universe, and then she's getting called back home by her mom.
Yep. So initially, she wasn't supposed to be a 13-year-old. I initially planned to make her like 5 or 6, but when I was writing her, when I was writing the dialogue, I was like, man, she doesn't quite seem like it. Some of the words that I'm using. It doesn't quite seem like it doesn't sound like a 5 or 6-year-old. And then I'm like, dude, I'm an educator. I work with 11, 12, 13-year-olds. I know how they talk. So
Hmm.
I kind of bumped her up. Actually, we had some artwork that was like, and she was already younger. And I had to go back to the drawing board, and I said, hey man, look, this isn't quite working. And then the artist was nice enough. Shout out to Christian. He was nice enough to like bump her age up a little bit in his art style. Um, but but yeah, she really doesn't know what's going on. Um, but I decided to do that because I really wanted to show myself. I was talking about how my mom, like, all she wanted to do was protect me. Visually, Mackenzie is based on my sister, half Asian, half Black, half Filipino, half Black person or girl. But a lot of it is, and hopefully a lot of people will see themselves in this character as well. They think they know everything. They're the exact opposite of what their parents are, and they truly don't understand the decisions that they're making. But a lot of it you'll see throughout the story through flashbacks, like those first 4 pages that you read, that she really prefers her father. She would. There's going to be a moment, hopefully in like issue 3, where she really, I guess I'll throw it out there because if I'm lucky enough to make it, I'm going to talk about it
Yeah.
all like. But there's going to be a moment in issue 3 where she's gonna let Serenity know, like, I wish it was you. I wish my dad was still.
But what's funny, because I wish I could show you what I wrote on this page right here, because I wrote, does Zaire's influence on Mackenzie fuel her disdain for her mother?
Absolutely. So you'll see again. I do sometimes I have issues with when I'm reading something with flashbacks, but I decided to do that because I wanted to have this story just between Serenity, not just between, because you'll see a lot of Zaire in there as well. But I use flashbacks to show what Zaire and Mackenzie's relationship was like. Now they got along perfect. They were the best of friends. They couldn't live without each other. And she'd rather stay with her dad. Actually, you'll see in the first 4 pages that Serenity and Zaire, they're not even together at the time that all this happens. They fall in love, they break up, and then after they break up, they had Mackenzie.
Right.
So this whole time, she's been splitting time with the both of them. She absolutely she lives with Serenity, but she'll see her dad, and that was me growing up as well. My parents split up when I was like 1 or 2. But my dad, and they had good reason to split up. But most of the time, my mom worked from 12 p.m. to 12 a.m. And most of the time when I left school, I was getting picked up by my dad. And so the whole time I was hanging out with my dad, and I very much preferred to be at my dad's house, just chopping it up with my dad. And then I would always be kind of bummed out when I would have to go back to my mom's house, or my house. It was my house too. But a lot of that story it's very exaggerated because shout out to my mom. I'm making it sound like my mom is like, she was a terrible mother. She's the perfect mother. I'd do anything for her.
I was about to say earlier in this podcast, I would never get that, because you bigged her up to the highest of highs, brother.
Yeah. But I'm talking about how I'd rather be with my dad, and I hated going back to my mom's house, or my house, because I'd rather be with the dad. And that's absolutely true. That was true when I was in 3rd, 4th, and 5th, 6th grade.
Yep.
But it was a time where I didn't know as much as I know now. I didn't know about the reasons why they broke up, why they got divorced, why they separated. And there was a reason why that my mother had to work from 12 p.m. to 12 a.m. and I barely got to see her except on the weekend. And it wasn't until recently how much she actually did for me. I'm an adult now, and I'm tired after work every day. But my mother I used to come home from school some days, the days where my dad didn't pick me up. Every day we would have food waiting. She would leave a note saying, "Hey, eat this." She would have hamburger help her out in the refrigerator ready for us. And I didn't realize, seriously, until recently, how much my mother absolutely did for me. And so you'll see a lot of that story. If I'm lucky enough to tell the story for issues and issues and issues and issues and issues and issues on, hopefully I'll be able to do that, because Mackenzie is kind of me when I was 11, 12, 13.
Okay.
An exaggerated version of me.
Right.
And, Serenity is my mother, an exaggerated version of my mother.
Got you, man. So what I basically had here was to describe the character building. When you were building that personality, that is Serenity. And this because aside from Serenity being a champion for Mackenzie and doing all these things that more so Mackenzie may seem as like she's crowding her, she's shadowing, she's always on her back. But how would you say that you built that character to where they have this sort of fractured relationship, like personality wise, for Serenity?
So that was actually tough. The first two or three drafts that I wrote the script, I did a lot of just saying, I did a lot of just talking about how unkind Serenity is. I did a lot of just Mackenzie talking to people about how, I don't want to be here. She's mean, she's cold, she's heartless. So around the 4th or the 5th draft, or the fifth go around about it, I found a way to actually show that in this cool action sequence that you'll see in the middle of the issue.
Mm.
And like I said, it was the toughest part, but I think for this specific issue, but I wanted to show her as cold, like, all right, this is our objective. This is how we're going to get off the planet. This is how we're going to do this. Is that understood? Is it no ifs, ands, or buts? You do what I say. This is a dictatorship.
Mm-hmm.
You do what I say, and we'll make it off this planet. And Mackenzie doesn't really respond to that very well, and that causes a lot of conflict. And I finished writing issue 2, and you'll see this kind of, I would say, this balancing act from Serenity. She's starting to see, all right, maybe I do need to take it easy on her, but she knows that if I do take it easy on her, then we might not make it out of this situation alive. So, so I do like I said, the first couple of drafts, it was a lot of just telling about how she's cold. And then as I got into it as I got into a groove, I started showing her more this way. And then hopefully if y'all dig it, because Christian did a great job drawing. And shout out to Christian Prunesti, the artist who drew it. He did a great job with this action sequence. There's going to be a lot of action there, y'all. So if you're into action, if you're into sci-fi fantasy action, hopefully you'll dig it.
Nah, I happen to see some of the snippets, and the action that you basically put forth. I only saw maybe 3 panels. It still looked fire from there. But when you describe this in the sense of, okay, you said Radiant Black meets God of War. God of War has some of the most extreme villains I've ever seen out of a video game. So when we're talking about this in the sense of a comic book and how you're basically going to bring this to life through this alien race, what exactly do you mean? Because we only got maybe 1 panel of the alien race.
Oh yeah. So I grew up with Final Fantasy. I grew up with Final Fantasy 7, Final Fantasy 8, Final Fantasy 9, and then God of War. So I'm very much into fantasy type stories, but science fiction also is a big part of it as well. So if you guys ever played Final Fantasy or any type of Final Fantasy 7 or 8 or 9, you know that they have this huge mishmash of science fiction elements with fantasy elements. So you'll have laser beams and dragons, you'll have swords and machine guns and all this stuff. So I wanted to mix these two genres in a cool way. And I think I was able to do that, especially with Christian on the art. But the villain, you'll see that going on through the story, the villain that we kind of teased might not be the main conflict throughout the story in the first issue. Yeah, absolutely. But you'll see that there's a lot more internal conflict going on where if I pull it off, if me and Christian can pull it off, you'll see that the main conflict, it really will come within. And Serenity and Mackenzie, mostly Serenity, is going to have to make some brutal, heart-wrenching decisions with her, Mackenzie, and the antagonist that we're teasing, and some characters that we haven't been introduced yet. But like I said, I think we're going to kill it. But hopefully, if we're lucky enough to do this, you'll see that that might not be the main antagonist.
Okay, got you. So okay, so the story in general, and I've since you're an English teacher, I'll just bring up a term. The story feels like an allegory, a story with a hidden meaning. You've talked about, of course, your mother and your family, and how most of the characters are being portrayed as such within this book, and how it pertains to you. Sort of like I guess if you wanted to describe it as, for an example, most high school students have to read Animal Farm, like basically about the Russian Revolution, but it's based on factions and societies brought out throughout a farm. You know what I'm saying? So the fact that you do you feel as though the book, although it's a sci-fi novel and it's based on the relationship between mother and daughter throughout this whole book, do you describe it as an allegory for your real life and for your family in general?
Absolutely. One of the things that I'll talk a lot about my influences. But you'll see a lot. One of my influences is like Pixar movies. And you know, when you watch a Pixar movie, you'll see like Turning Red, for instance. Um, it's an allegory about puberty. It's an
Yeah.
allegory about finding yourself and all these things. Even Soul, it's an allegory about not finding your purpose, but finding your passion and
Mhm.
stuff. So a lot of times when I outline a story or when I come up with a story, I try to, I don't know if it's a Pixar formula, but I do try to think of it as, what kind of theme or what kind of message or what kind of whatever do I want to show the world about themselves, or the person, the audience about themselves. And in this case, hopefully a lot of people will be able to see themselves in this story. But like you said earlier, yeah, it is an allegory about me, how I personally grew up. But if I tell the story well, if me and Christian do it well, and I think we're doing well, if we do it well, then hopefully a lot of people will see themselves in it. So hopefully it'll be an allegory for all of you guys listening,
Okay.
if you can relate to it. Not everyone will relate to it as much as specifically me, because it is me, but I'm sure a few people might.
Of course. Now, what would you say is the difference between your reading audience and your students?
um, um, at at when I'm teaching, I have to find a lot of very relevant stories or very relevant articles. Um, a lot of times, even lately, this past school year, um, like I'll just scrap the lesson plan. Hey, let's just talk about what's happening in the news right now, because a lot of times they just want to, yo, did you hear what happened in Texas? Yeah, all right, let's. And a lot of times, like I said, it's they they want to read something that's relevant to them. They want to talk about what's relevant to them. They want to see what's relevant to them, or they want to. We talked even before, we talked about representation. You know, I got a class. My students, my school is like 70% black or 65% black, like
Mhm.
10% white, then 10% Hispanic, and then 5% other, or something like that. So a lot of times the curriculum that they give us, you know, it's people that don't look like them. It's stories that has no meaning to them.
Mhm.
Um, and a lot of times they just want to read a story about themselves or someone that looks like them. And that's why I wanted to make these characters a little bit more for um, people of color.
Right.
Um, but the sci-fi elements, some of them will dig that. The fantasy elements, some of them will dig that. But I think that buy-in will come when they see that the main characters are people of color. There's an Asian main character, there's a mixed person, Asian and black, and then another black character um, represented in these stories. So I guess the I wouldn't say it's a huge difference
Mhm.
or a huge problem. I would say the problem is that relevancy, because if that story or if that title or if those characters don't look or sound or aren't relevant to them,
Mhm.
then they might not buy into it. And they're more willing to buy into it if that representation is there.
Got you. Now, what are your students' feelings towards you doing comic books?
Oh man, they love it, dude. I promise. So I guess can I segue into the Mad Cave joint real quick?
Yes, you can.
Yeah, so that was, you'll see if y'all ever look at my classroom, or if you ever by chance see my classroom, you'll see there's a big Captain America poster, like movie poster over there. You'll see comic books all across the wall. So they already know I'm into comic books. I run the comic book club at my school. But prior to the me winning the Mad Cave Studios contest, and they do it every year. If you guys want to try out, it happens every year. This past one just ended like last week. So if you want to try again in 2023, but they love it, man. When I won it, it was just a regular day. Like it was the end of the day. I think it was a Thursday or a Friday. It's probably a Friday. But I was just on Instagram. It was during dismissal, and I got this message from another artist that I was working with. Shout out to Rachel Disler. She's working. I have a story with her coming out in an anthology. But she messaged me and she just said, "Oh, look at this! Congratulations!" I said, "Congratulations for what?" And then she sent me the picture of the 4 winners, and my name was the last one. And I promise you, I started bawling. I started crying in front of all the students. And that was the time where like masks were still required. I had the mask off and I was just bawling, and everyone was like, "Mr. Becton, are you okay?" And I couldn't even say anything, man. I was just,
Right.
they were hugging me. They were like just making sure that I was okay. And I was just shaking my head. Yeah, I'm okay. It's just a dream is about to come true.
Right. Right.
But before that, man, like, I always tried to do the Mad Cave thing, but I never expected to win.
Mm-hmm.
So for that to happen, I was like, if this comic book thing is gonna happen, if I'm gonna, make a name in the comic book industry,
Yeah.
like now is the time that it's gonna happen. So I decided to go all in. I got the Mad Cave thing coming out. I got a story with Wildstar Press, a 6-page story in an anthology. I'm doing Worlds Away. I'm working on another story. I'm working on another story. Hopefully, some publisher will pick one of these up.
Mm-hmm.
But they love it, man. They're excited for me, and I appreciate them because they're always asking me, "Hey, when's your book coming out? I'm going to buy an issue." I said, "Don't worry about it. I will give you an issue. I'll sign
Right.
it for you and everything." But they love it, man, and I appreciate the students, as hard-headed as they are, as some of them are. They love it. They're excited for me, and I appreciate it, and I love them all.
That's what's up. That's what's up. Now, a couple weeks ago, in the middle of this campaign, you basically talked about Worlds Away 2 already
Mhm.
having distribution, I believe through Vault. Is that what you said?
Oh no, I wish. Whoo, I wish. No, what happened was I did get some, not Vault. I did get some interest from another publisher. So hopefully I'll hear back from them. But what I was able to do was an artist who has a book coming out with Vault.
Ah,
I
yep.
was able to collab with them, and they have a cover. They're doing the cover. Actually, they did a cover for Worlds Away #2 that has Zaire and Mackenzie on it. It is absolutely beautiful. I'm actually going to post it. Since we just passed 250 backers on Kickstarter, which is crazy to me. I was expecting 100. I would have been happy with 100.
Mm.
um, but we just got 250 backers, so I'm gonna actually release that cover. His name is Sunando C. He's working with Vault for a beautiful book called End After End. Shout out to Sunando because he's a great dude. He was really kind. He got back to me really quickly. Um, and he's just a friendly dude, man. But his cover for World Away #2 is dope. It has Zaire and Mackenzie on it. So y'all keep a lookout for that one.
That's what's happening, man. Um, as far as the Mad Cave talent, well, when you do win that, what does it more so entail for anybody that does want to submit? Like when you do win it,
Mhm.
what do you then go further to do?
So it's different year after year. I wish I would have won it in the first year or the second year, because the first year, the second year, they got like 4-issue limited series out of them.
Oh,
And a lot of them are still like, a lot of them. Shout out to Jared Lujan. He I think, well, he
man.
had Dryfoot, and he has a few projects coming out.
Isn't he like he's a milestone recipient right now, isn't he?
DC, yeah. So
Yeah.
he started off with Matt Cave. Shout out to him. I just DM'd him earlier today. He has a book with a wave blue world. He's doing some other things that I probably can't talk about.
Mhm.
And then, so the first couple of years, they got like 4-issue limited series. And last year, the year before I got it, they were part of an anthology. So there was a graphic novel, and they all got like a few pages. But me and the winners this year hasn't been announced yet. I'm not sure if I can really talk about it.
Oh, okay.
But I can't. But I can say. But I will say, I'm not sure if I can say, but we all got a one shot for a specific title at Mad Cave. So there's a Mad Cave Studios title that's currently going. We all got I specifically got a prequel one shot for it.
Mhm.
I'm not sure what the other 3 got, but I was able to work with a very, very dope artist, Rafael Romeo Magat. He's Filipino like me, so we kind of hit it off there.
They
But
see, man, trading some lumpia secrets and everything.
yep. I promise. He's a nice dude too. And shout out to Rafael, because like when I wrote the script, I'm like, yo, this is dope. Hey, can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do that? He said, yeah, but wouldn't it be cooler if we did this? I'm like, you're absolutely right. Let's go ahead and change it up, and I'll change it in the script.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got this one shot coming out. Hopefully I don't think it's coming out this year. I think it's going to come out in 2023.
Mhm.
But man, I tell you, I'm super excited about it. Like I think I'm not saying that, I'm the greatest writer ever, because I'm absolutely not. I'm still learning. Shout out to Brian Hawkins, who is the editor, he works at Mad Cave. He's an editor. He has a book with Aftershock.
Oh yeah, I contributed to what, the poet, the lunatic, and the man.
Yep.
Yeah,
He was yep, cool dude. A great dude. Shout out to him, because he's the editor on the story. Shout out to David Hazan. Shout out to Jared Lujan and all of them. But Brian, he he helped with the story as well. But I'm just saying, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I think me and Raphael absolutely killed it. And I promise you, when that shows up in previews, when that shows up in comic book stores, there will be more tears coming out of me, because I'm super excited about it. We finished it a while ago. I think we finished that thing in like February.
Mm-hmm.
It's either February or like the end of January he finished, maybe March. But the inks are still in this Google Drive. Like, he did the pencils and then he did the inks like right after it. But it's just sitting in this Google Drive, and I'll just every 2 days,
every now and again.
I just look at it and just be in awe of how dope it is. Because man, like I said, I thought I wrote a dope story, but Raphael, he absolutely killed it, man.
That's what's happening. So aside from Worlds Away being a sci-fi novel, sci-fi comic, I'm sorry, I'm saying a novel, and the stories that you've written so far, or even some of the ones that have yet to come out, aside from those, is there a theme or a genre that you haven't tackled that you would like to someday?
Yes. So I want to do, and the first 2 stories that I'm working on right now are like sci-fi fantasy action stories. But I have this thought, and I'm pretty, like, I'm 95 to 99% sure that I'm actually going to go forward with it. If this Kickstarter is already successful, but the next one's successful as well. I'm pretty sure I'm going to go forward with it for a horror, a sci-fi-ish horror, more horror than anything. and I want to see if I'm able to I guess convey that horror in an effective way. This story that I want to write, it's literally gonna hit all genres of horror. But yeah, if I had to choose right now, it would be a horror, and I think that's gonna happen. You cross your fingers for me, everyone, but I think horror is gonna happen.
Got you. Now I read somewhere that your dad's a big comic book head.
Absolutely. He's right.
Who's his favorite character?
Man, I promise you, it's easy. Well, I don't know, but I know his two favorites are Thor and the Hulk. So, like,
you must have loved Ragnarok.
Yeah, he absolutely did, man. But like, man, I remember he would. I think it's the Hulk because every time I go there, every time I give him my books, it's like he has the old Red Hulk comic books that I gave him. But he has so many comic books. Like I'm so thankful for my dad, man. He got me into comic books, and I could just talk to him about it for days. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And he said, no, 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 no. The Hulk is the strongest one there is. That's what he says. I haven't thought about that in years, but he used to say that all the time. So shout out to my dad. Love you, Dad.
That's what's happening, man. So for anybody that wants to get their hands on Worlds Away after the Kickstarter campaign, or more so wants to see the work that you're putting in, how could they get their hands on it? Want to see anything that you're putting out?
Yeah. So the plan is to, once it's finished, it'll hopefully be finished at the beginning or middle of August. I'll have it on globalcomics.com. So if you don't know what globalcomics.com,
shout out to globalcomics.com, man.
Global Comics, it's a great format. It's a great platform. And I think it keeps growing and growing and growing. So I'm gonna have it on there. And then if you guys want updates about it, especially about future updates for Worlds Away #2, Worlds Away #3, because I'm constantly going to be updating about it. You can go to my Substack, which is I thought it was clever. My Substack is wordsaway.substack.com. But if you want to check that out, everything on Words Away is free. I constantly post updates. Not the Kickstarter updates, but more so updates for Worlds Away #2, Worlds Away #3, and stuff like that. And I'll be showing off some artwork for Reveria, which is another story that I'm working on. It'll be on Global Comics, but hopefully if you miss this Kickstarter, you can still get your hands on it because you still got like 36 hours, something like that.
Yeah,
but hopefully I'll be able to run the Kickstarter. I'm gonna give myself a break because constantly posting about this, advertising it, it's gonna be during the school year, but the next Kickstarter hopefully will be in October for Worlds Away 2.
So right at the beginning of the school, well, not the beginning of the school year for you. I think y'all starting like August, right?
We started the end of August, so it'll be like 25-ish days into the school year.
Yeah, so up here in Jersey, we start in September.
Wait, hold on. If y'all start in September, y'all must end in the middle of June or the end of June.
End of June.
No thanks. That's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah, man. So, hey, I appreciate you doing this with me.
Yes, sir.
This has been excellent. I appreciate you answering all my questions. So from James Grandmaster Facts, boys, Damien Becton, Worlds Away, still live right now. This last day, we're going to try and get this man a little bit more in his pocket. He's already taking care of his creators, taking care of himself. We're going to get this book out as much as possible. We are out.